Between February 2003 and August 2004, 3 young women fell victim to a malevolent predator intent on causing as much devastation as possible. Each of these women had been in public going about their own affairs when a man made the decision to attempt to end their lives in a horrifying manner, ranging from inflicting head trauma to using his vehicle as a deadly weapon. In late 2004, the man was apprehended and placed under arrest. He was eventually convicted of the charges several years later, but in a stunning turn of events, he was connected to another unsolved murder that had taken place 8 years prior. Amanda Jane Dowler, known affectionately as Millie, was born on June 25, 1988, to Bob and Sally Dowler. Millie shared a special bond with her older sister, Gemma, whom she held in the highest regard. The sisters shared an unbreakable friendship, with Gemma describing Millie as a warm and lively soul, her eyes always sparkling with joy. Millie's kind and generous nature endeared her to many, always ready to lift the spirits of those around her. Her sudden disappearance cast a shadow over the lives of those who cherished her radiant presence. On that fateful day of March 21st, 2002, 13-year-old Millie bid farewell to Heathside School at 3:07 p.m., embarking on a journey to Weybridge Railway Station alongside a friend. Boarding a train to Walton-on-Thames Station, one stop before her usual destination of Hersham, the girls decided to indulge in a meal at the station cafe. Millie reached out to her father at 3:47 p.m., assuring him of her imminent return within the next half hour. Parting ways with her friend at 4:05 p.m., Millie commenced her journey homeward. The last sighting of her was at a bus stop on Station Avenue, recognized by a friend of Gemma. Despite extensive searches and police efforts, Millie failed to arrive home as anticipated, prompting her parents to alert the authorities by 7 p.m. A thorough search ensued, with officers scouring the area on foot and deploying police helicopters in hopes of locating any trace of the young girl. Rivers were combed, and every inch of the route Millie should have traversed was meticulously examined. Reviewing the CCTV footage from Station Avenue revealed a red Daewoo Nexia passing by at 4:32 p.m. 7 years later, the identity of the driver would come to light. Detectives tirelessly appealed to the public for any information or sightings that could shed light on Millie's disappearance, urging witnesses to come forward with any pertinent details. Her vanishing was so abrupt that initial speculations centered around Millie either intentionally fleeing or being acquainted with the individual who took her. How could a complete stranger have snatched her at such a time of day in a rather public location? It simply did not add up. Millie's family was resolute that she would never have run away. Crime Watch UK broadcasted a reenactment of Millie's final known movements and made a direct plea to the young girl, as Millie running away was the most favorable scenario. However, her mother couldn't comprehend why her youngest daughter would take such action. Years later, it was publicly disclosed that Millie had penned letters indicating her intention to leave home and expressing some discontent. In reality, these letters were merely a teenage girl venting her typical frustrations on paper after what was likely a common disagreement with her parents or sister. Nothing more. On March 28th, the authorities still did not believe they were dealing with a stranger forcibly taking Millie. No witnesses had come forward claiming to have seen any form of altercation, despite Millie being spotted on multiple occasions throughout the afternoon. They believed it was improbable that she had left with a stranger, thus assuming she was familiar with the person she departed with. 4 weeks passed with minimal leads and still no trace of Millie. On April 23, 2002, a body was discovered in the River Thames, sparking immediate speculation that it could be Millie Dowler. It was later confirmed that the remains belonged to 73-year-old Maisie Thomas, who had vanished the previous year, and her death was deemed non-suspicious. Maisie likely drowned. Weeks turned into months with no new information on Millie's whereabouts. Frustrations continued to mount for the Dowlers, puzzled by how their daughter could vanish without a trace. To make matters worse, the family themselves began facing scrutiny, with Bob Dowler becoming the primary focus. Given the repeated statements from the police indicating that Millie likely knew the person she left with, the media naturally fixated on the idea of a family member being involved. While grappling with their grief, the family also had to endure the publication of stories and the spread of baseless rumors. Bob Dowler, innocent of any involvement in his daughter's disappearance, found the scrutiny unbearable. Not only was it a terrible accusation to face, but Bob understood that every moment spent focusing on him was a moment lost in the search for the true culprit. Subsequently, authorities issued an apology for potentially overlooking crucial leads while concentrating on Bob in connection with Millie's disappearance. By June, the authorities had a conversation with the Dowlers, cautioning them to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Bob and Sally persisted in sending text messages to their daughter, holding out hope that she was still alive somewhere. In that same month, the son offered a £100,000 reward, yet no one stepped forward with any valuable information. In September 2002, the worst fears of everyone involved were confirmed. On September 18th, a small group of mushroom pickers in Yateley Heath Woods, Hampshire, stumbled upon a body in the undergrowth. The authorities were promptly notified, and dental records confirmed the identity of the deceased as Millie Dowler. She was discovered unclothed, without any of the belongings she had when she vanished, including her backpack, purse, and cell phone. To this day, none of these items have been recovered. The case transitioned from a missing person inquiry to a hunt for the individual responsible for Millie's tragic end. The Surrey police initiated Operation Ruby to bring this perpetrator to justice. A month after Millie's body was found, a significant roadblock was established near Yateley Heath Woods by the Surrey police. Approximately 6,000 drivers were stopped and interrogated, but no new leads emerged. Millie's personal belongings underwent forensic examination, and on March 23, 2003, a year following her disappearance, unidentified male DNA was discovered on one of her garments. This discovery led authorities to speculate that Millie may have encountered the individual who ended her life before she went missing. Regrettably, this lead was quickly dismissed. Despite numerous interviews, extensive door-to-door investigations, and a deep dive into questionable characters residing near the locations where Millie was last spotted and where her remains were discovered, the Surrey police remained empty-handed. The next potential breakthrough occurred when the Dowlers received a disturbing letter from someone claiming responsibility for Millie's fate. It was soon revealed that the letter was penned by Paul Hughes, who was serving time in prison for inappropriate behavior with a minor. Hughes received an additional 5-year sentence for the letter and the threats directed at Millie's sister, Gemma. The prison service issued an apology to the Dowlers for failing to intercept the letter before it reached them. Other disturbed individuals treated Millie's disappearance and death as some sort of sick game. Leanne Newman made numerous phone calls pretending to be Millie before her deception was uncovered. She contacted Bob, Sally, the authorities, and even Millie's school. Newman was sentenced to 5 months in prison after admitting to making these calls. Gary Farr, a mentally unstable individual, persistently sent emails to those connected to Millie and the investigators, alleging that she had been taken to Poland. Farr insisted that her death was merely a cover-up. He was eventually detained under the Mental Health Act indefinitely due to posing a threat to the public. Amidst all the chaos, there was still a grieving family yearning to uncover the truth about Millie's fate. But the answers remained years away. On February 4th, 2003, 19-year-old Marcia McDonnell was struck on the head with a blunt object not far from her residence in Hampton. The incident occurred shortly after Marcia disembarked from the 111 bus at the Percy Road bus stop. Unfortunately, Marcia passed away 2 days later in the hospital. On May 28th of the following year, 18-year-old Kate Sheedy was on her way home when she spotted a suspicious car parked on the side of the road. A man was seated inside, the engine was running, but the lights were intentionally turned off. Kate made the decision to distance herself from the vehicle and cross the road. Before she could comprehend what was happening, Kate was struck by the car. Demonstrating that this was no accident, the man then reversed over Kate's body before speeding away. Remarkably, Kate managed to pull herself off the road and seek assistance. Despite the seriousness of her injuries, Kate survived. Following an extended hospitalization 3 months later, another young woman fell victim. Amélie Delagrange, a 20-year-old French student visiting England, tragically lost her life in a brutal manner reminiscent of Marcia McDonnell's case. It took less than 24 hours for authorities to connect the incidents. On November 22, 2004, a man was apprehended for the crime against Amélie Delagrange. His name was Levi Bellfield. Levi Rabbits was born on May 17, 1968, in Isleworth, London, to Jean and Joseph Rabbits. The exact time when he changed his surname from Rabbits to Bellfield is uncertain, but it is known to be his mother's maiden name. Bellfield's father passed away from leukemia when he was a child. He was raised with his 4 siblings on a council estate in southwest London and attended Crane Junior High School. In 1981, Bellfield was convicted of breaking into a house and stealing various items as a teenager. In 1990, he was involved in a physical altercation with a police officer, resulting in another charge. Although he had a history of criminal activities and convictions, none were as severe as the accusations he would later face. Bellfield has 11 children with 5 different women. His former romantic partners later depicted Bellfield's demeanor as charming at first, until his true nature began to emerge. All the women recounted similar tales of Bellfield's behavior as a significant other. Detective Chief Inspector Colin Sutton, who was involved in the subsequent cases related to Bellfield, had this to say about him. Upon our initial interactions, he appeared very jovial, almost like a close friend, but he is a sly, violent individual. He can seamlessly transition from being pleasant to being malicious in an instant. In the years 2003 and 2004, Levi Bellfield ran a wheel-clamping enterprise, granting him an intricate understanding of the streets he prowled, akin to a predatory animal seeking its next prey. Levi would roam the streets in search of a suitable target. Detective Sutton remarked on Bellfield's mindset, stating, "Bellfield possesses an insatiable ego." Following the connection of CCTV footage to Amelie's case, Bellfield was placed under surveillance by undercover agents, who observed him conversing with young girls at bus stops. It was evident that, had he not been apprehended, more women would have met tragic fates. On February 25, 2008, Levi Bellfield was convicted of the murders of Marcia McDonnell and Amélie Delagrange. He was also found guilty of his actions towards Kate Sheedy. The next day, Bellfield learned that he would be spending the remainder of his days incarcerated. His defense relayed the news to Bellfield, who opted not to be present in court that day. Bellfield was also implicated in 2 other incidents: the false imprisonment of 17-year-old Anna Maria Rennie in October 2001, and the attempted murder of Irma Dragoshi in December 2003. Both women identified Bellfield as the perpetrator, but the juries could not reach a unanimous decision in either case. Following his convictions, the 39-year-old Bellfield was publicly identified as a prime suspect in Millie's case. This was primarily due to CCTV footage linking him to the Red Daewoo Nexia. spotted around the time Millie was last seen on the same street she had been on. Further inquiry revealed that Bellfield's former partner was the owner of the vehicle and resided in the same vicinity as the Dowlers. During an interview with the Daily Mirror in 2009, Bellfield remarked, "There's not many red Daewoo's floating about in Walton-on-Thames, so we've got to be realistic about it. But then I've got to be careful about how I answer these questions. I did use the Daewoo once, and I was stopped by the police once in it for speeding." It remains unclear why Bellfield chose to make such statements when implicated in a crime as heinous as Millie's. The car was never recovered. By March 2010, investigators were convinced they had their suspect, and Levi Bellfield was formally accused of abducting Millie from the street and ending her life. Bellfield's trial commenced on May 10, 2011, at the Central Criminal Court, under the jurisdiction of Mr. Justice Wilk. The trial spanned 6 weeks before a verdict was reached. During his opening statement, the prosecuting barrister recounted the events of Millie's final day. On this day, an entirely innocent and quite ordinary diversion to a station cafe to buy some chips with some school friends was a decision that was to cost Millie her life because it meant her taking a fateful journey along Station Avenue. Bellfield was convicted on June 23, 2011, and received a second life sentence. Years later, Bellfield confessed to his actions against Millie. The Dowlers found some form of closure, yet a bitter aftertaste lingered in many aspects of the investigation. Sally addressed the press, stating, "Our family life has been scrutinized and laid open for everyone to inspect." Bob expressed that the toll of this conviction had been excessively high for the family. Bellfield's defense aggressively cross-examined Millie's parents, with Gemma as a witness. She later described the experience as one of the darkest days of her life. The defense sought to portray Millie as a despondent teenager, contrary to the vibrant girl known to those around her. Millie's tale resurfaced in grandeur on June 30, 2011, as Crime Watch showcased a special episode titled Taken: The Millie Dowler Story. The show delved into the investigation, presented witness testimonies, and involved Millie's loved ones. A reenactment was also included, illustrating the events of that fateful day. Through it all, Millie's family was able to portray her true essence to the nation, beyond the exaggerated news headlines. Despite all this, a lingering question remained. Was Bellfield behind more heinous crimes? Patricia Joyce Morris, born on January 10, 1966, to George, a retired Army chief, and Marjorie Morris, was a beloved figure among her siblings. Known affectionately as Patsy, she graced the world with her presence in Birmingham before relocating to Isleworth in southwest London at the tender age of 13. Tragically, on June 16, 1980, during a school lunch break, Patsy mysteriously disappeared. The 14-year-old had seemingly decided to walk home that fateful day to change into dry clothes, only to vanish without a trace. 2 days later, her lifeless body was discovered by a police dog on Hounslow Heath, just a stone's throw away from her residence. The perpetrator had used a ligature to end her young life. Levi Bellfield, a mere 12 years old at the time, had attended the same school as Patsy and was even her childhood sweetheart. A year following Patsy's tragic fate, Bellfield was convicted of his first burglary offense. Despite his absence from school on the day of Patsy's disappearance and his familiarity with the area where her body was found, questions lingered. Patsy's mother, upon learning of the grim discovery, expressed bewilderment at her daughter's presence in that forbidden place. The revelation that Bellfield frequented the Heath, skipping school to do so, raises unsettling inquiries. Was Bellfield inherently malevolent? Could a boy of his age truly be capable of such a heinous act? Following the resolution of Millie's case, the potential connection to Bellfield was brought to light when Patsy's father, George Morris learned about it. He vividly remembered a chilling incident from years past when a mysterious teenage boy threatened him over the phone, a memory he now believes was Bellfield. Patsy Morris was not the only victim that Bellfield was suspected of being involved in. In 1990, Judith Gold, a 51-year-old housewife, was tragically discovered near her Hampstead residence, brutally attacked with an unidentified object. Similar brutal attacks occurred throughout London between 1990 and 2004, all bearing a resemblance to Bellfield's modus operandi. The choice of weapons used in these crimes was distinctive, mirroring those employed in the cases of Marcia and Amelie. While concrete evidence linking Bellfield to these crimes was lacking, he could not be definitively excluded from any of the incidents, with one exception. On the 6th of July in the year 1996, Lynn Russell, aged 45, and her charming daughter Megan, accompanied by Lynn's other daughter, 9-year-old Josie, were cruelly attacked while returning home from a swimming gala. They were bound and subjected to brutal blows with a hammer. Lynn, Megan, and even the beloved family dog tragically lost their lives on that fateful day. Miraculously, Josie managed to survive. Although she physically recovered, it is quite probable that she still carries the emotional scars from that dreadful day. Bellfield supposedly admitted to the crime to his cellmate, yet Bellfield vehemently denies ever making such a confession. His former girlfriend, who played a crucial role in securing a conviction in Millie's trial, has consistently asserted that Bellfield was in her company on that particular day. Numerous other cases have been linked to Bellfield, some of which he purportedly confessed to. But to this day, law enforcement has failed to uncover any concrete evidence connecting Bellfield to these incidents. Perhaps one day the authorities will apprehend the individual responsible for these tragic losses, and that individual may very well be Levi Bellfield. Levi Bellfield remains incarcerated at H.M. Prison Franklin in County Durham and will never experience freedom in the outside world again. On the 29th of June in the year 2017, Gemma published a book entitled My Sister Millie. Within this poignant work, Gemma recounts the tumultuous period she endured, coping with the loss of her sister, the intense media scrutiny, and the suspicions of her parents. Gemma shares her journey towards healing. A snippet from the book's description reads, "It is the tale of two childhoods stolen, Millie's and Gemma's, and the enduring love that united the family as they grappled with profound darkness and injustice.